groups such as yourselves, because they
Well,
aren't satisfied.
I'm not aware
with
of any lawsuit that we ever filed that denied coal bed methane development in general.
in general. Well, it's not in general. There's a lot of specific issues, but you
Well,
can understand how.
Tell me what you're talking about.
Well, there's a number of firms that are involved in trying to advance coal bed methane development in southeastern Montana, for example. And they've been sued at every turn. The EPA has
For
been
what?
brought to bear.
For just wanting coal bed methane development,
No,
or for
for-
something specific?
For specific uses of water and
Okay,
and basically,
so we want it done right. And
And
presumably, if we were involved in that, whatever lawsuit you're talking about, which you can't name,
there's a
we
series
thought
of
it
lawsuits.
wasn't making it done right.
There are a series of lawsuits that organizations like yours, Northern Plains Resource Development, have done that basically have
Organizations
stopped.
like mine,
Well, yes, basically.
was ours involved?
Yours was directly involved
And
and
which
represented by
lawsuit is
Earth
this?
Justice. I will get you, fax those over to you. There's
Well,
a series
okay.
of about
It's
10
hard
of
to
them.
respond to your question unless
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, in any event, there are a series of lawsuits out there, and the Justice Department has said that there's now 6,800 lawsuits on the books against the federal government, initiated by environmental concerns, and primarily in the Rocky Mountains, against oil and gas development. And according to Tom Cincinnati with the Justice Department, most of those are frivolous lawsuits. And basically, they're there to ingratiate the law firms that are involved and to ingratiate some of the environmental groups. I'm not saying yours.
Ingratiate?
Yes.
Is that the word you want?
Well, for
I don't
large,
understand how that word applies here.
well, it's these large cash settlements too, you know, basically. But anyway, do you want to respond to that?
Enrich, you mean?
Yes, enrich.
We've never filed a lawsuit in which we sought any money.
Okay,
We've never received money for winning a lawsuit. I mean, that's just not us.
okay.
And you talk about environmental groups. Your first question was what kind of group we were, and I don't think I said we were an environmental group, and I don't believe we are.
So you're not an environmental group?
No.
Okay. Well, your organization's been used in that context many times, and I just,
How do you mean used in the context?
well,
People like you
environmental
call
groups,
this one?
yes.
Oh,
There's actually, well, Northern Plains is, what is your relationship to Northern Plains Resource Council? Are you all belong under the WORC umbrella? Is that how it works?
we are part of WRC.
Okay.
And if they are too, then that's
They
a
are.
relationship,
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, that whole group has been referenced everywhere from the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis did a report, and basically it was talking about the potentials of coal bed methane development in Montana and Wyoming, and it's being stymied by some of these environmental groups, and they mention your groups by name. But there's also,
Okay, well, you know, what some analyst in the Fed Bank in Minneapolis calls us does not tell me what I am.
okay. Let me ask you another question. We talked a little bit about the Earth Justice and the relationship to the Sierra Club and how they represent you at no charge. And what do you think is in it for them? I mean, are they just doing this out of the goodness of their heart, representing you to stop economic development, or do you think they have a hidden agenda? Or
You know, I don't do conspiracy theories, and I don't know what's in it for them.
okay,
All I know is if they want to represent us free, and we're the client, we direct what they do. I'm not bothered by what else they do.
okay. One other question we had was regarding Jill, and I know she couldn't be here today, and I'm sorry to hear that. I wanted to ask her a couple of questions as well. But she obviously works with your organization, and she's what is her title?
She's an organizer.
Organizer, okay. Back in 2004, she won a $100,000 award, basically a $115,000 award, and basically from the Ford Foundation. And the Ford Foundation has said it was to support your organization's work and effectiveness. In our research, we've never seen where that was applied to your organization. I mean, did you use that somewhere else, or the $115,000, or your finances never reflected that money coming in from the Ford
Well,
Foundation?
the money came in, and we put it in our annual budget, and we're spending it. I don't know.
didn't show it on your
Don't know what you looked
financial,
at.
your financial documents from your organization. So
Well, as far as I know, we don't publish an operating statement for
you publish
any
your
public consumption.
well, you do. It's as a non-profit. It's available for anyone to look at. And,
Yeah, that's that IRS filing. which doesn't exactly tell you where every cent goes.
Okay, so what
But
you're
I mean,
reporting to the public
the
is
fact
not,
is that that money, part of it went for a sabbatical Jill took just recently.
okay.
Most of it went into our budget, just like the other grants and member
They're all reflected
donations.
pretty
and all
much
that.
in your statements, but we never saw anything from the Ford Foundation at all, and we're just curious.
Well,
as
I
to,
thought it was called, some subset of the Ford Foundation. I don't know. I mean, I could check on that for you too.
That'd be great if you could.
Okay.
We just want to include that as part of the story. We just want to know too that obviously you're doing some things that other farmers and ranchers, and that's all we've been interviewing, have some grave concerns, because what they're looking at is that there are some situations here in Wyoming where production is stopping or being curtailed because of activities from your organization. And a lot of organizations, a lot of officials have said that there are a lot of things in place to protect the landowners here in Wyoming. Would you not agree with that? Do you think they're not doing enough? Or?
There are some things in place. We've been involved in a lot of interactions with the Department of Environmental Quality and working groups for permitting and all like that. And we've been involved in good faith, spent a lot of our time, and we think we've improved the product. Yeah, there are some good things. But there are also some things that don't sit very well. Just some small things. I mean, we have members whose lands or upland meadows have been ruined by water just being dumped on them. And now nothing grows there, or else cattails and salt grasses grow there. So those regulations certainly need a little tweaking. They should continue to produce coal bed methane. There are all sorts of alternatives. And then there's a bigger issue, which we haven't got our arms around, but we're talking to state and federal officials all we can, and that's the dewatering of Wyoming. I mean, I want my grandkids to be able to pump water from deep if that's what's needed, and have a ranch.
But you're saying that water is acceptable. I mean, there is
if
ways
it's
to use.
acceptable, and
Okay.
it's certainly acceptable if treated, which industry has done some of. But there have been some very bad examples where industry doesn't treat it and ruins land. We just want to stop those, that's all.
Well,
We don't want to stop industry.
I've seen some reports.
There are outfits in the industry who we greatly support because they care about these things.
Well, I've seen some reports that Jill has done, and as a journalist, I have to question some of the storylines that they've covered. She's doing a story now in Canada, or just completed one with the Canadian Broadcasting Company. And basically they were talking about someone here in Wyoming that was showing the methane gas coming out of his well. And basically alluded to the fact that all this production is going on is causing that. Now, wouldn't you agree, having a ranch here before coal bed methane came here, that if a lot of these wells had gas naturally occurring, naturally coming to the surface, so wouldn't it be in everyone's best interest is to use that gas for the public good and to find ways to work with the water byproduct so that it wouldn't damage this area? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Of course. That's what we're all about.
Okay.
We're for anything that is environmentally sound and pays its own way. I mean, we'd like to see it. We like people. We like the people who work in the methane fields. We like the tax revenue. But we don't like our places ruined so the tax take and the profit can be a little bit higher for 10 or 20 years until the industry's gone.
Okay, that's fair enough. Is there anything you'd like to say to the groups, the farmers and ranchers? Now keep in mind, farmers and ranchers are asking these questions because they're desperate for economic development in Montana, a lot of them. And in this area, there's a lot of concerned people that could see their development go away because of some of the negative press that, for example, Jill Morrison did with the Canadian group. And some other reports that have come out of your offices that have basically said this is the absolute worst type of pollution there is on the earth. I mean, they've alluded to that. Is there anything you'd like to say to those groups whose economic future, I mean, their future of their farms and ranches are on the line? I mean, would you like to have a statement for them, from your group?
Well, that's kind of a muddled question. I'm not sure how the lack of coal bed methane development puts their farms and ranches on the line. If they own the subsurface, and they could be making royalties, then I hope they can. And certainly they can, as long as the production is done in a way that doesn't harm their neighbors. I would also say that I think the smart way to look at this is over a long term. I mean, I've lived in places that had boom-bust development, and the part that follows the boom